Hello and welcome to the Browns Blitz. Today is Tuesday, March 10th, and this is episode number 42. Joining me today is a great Browns fan, Steve Bailey. How are you this evening, Steve?
Good, Rod. How's it going out there in Dayton?
Hi, it's going pretty good. We're edged towards spring here.
Are you all coronavirus up out there? Is the scare down in Dayton as bad as it is up here?
Well, I haven't been shopping for toilet paper tonight, but the things are definitely whipped up to a frenzy down here. It's hopefully things will die down in that area and we can kind of get back to living life like we want to and not be worried about things that we shouldn't have to worry about all the time, right?
Yeah, I agree. There's the flu is much more dangerous. This is just something new, and hopefully it'll pass here. Be careful, be conscious, be concerned, but no need to panic.
I agree. So, Steve, you are a host and producer at WEOL 930 AM and 100.3 FM, and you're based out. Is that in Elyria, Lorraine? Is that correct?
Correct. Yep, based out of Elyria, Lorraine. We're the radio branch of the Chronicle Telegram. So if you're familiar with that, the newspaper, we're connected with them.
All right. And your Twitter handle, it's at Steve Bailey 80.
Correct.
So, guys, everybody can give Steve a follow. Keep up with what's going on with him and all of his Browns tweets and otherwise. And before we start our discussion of Browns topics, which we have several things we want to get to, I'm a little bit nervous about this, Steve, but I have a Blitz beverage to talk about. I have a beer that I've been saving because I didn't think I could say the name, and it is a Lagunitas Citrusinensis Pale Ale. I think I did a little better that time.
I think you did.
Yeah, because I practiced it like 3 times. So it's a citrusy pale ale. It did have a nice citrusy flavor to it, a little bit tart, a little bit probably, on the hoppy side maybe. My loyal listeners know I'm not, not really a hoppy, not normally attracted to the hoppy type beers, but this had a pretty good flavor to it. So
you can get a little bitter.
Yeah, it had a little bit of bitterness to it, but I think the citrusy flavor kind of balanced that out. So I thought it was pretty well done. So I would kind of give it a probably a mild recommendation, especially if you like citrusy type beers. I think you'd probably enjoy it. So now that that's out of the way, let's head on into some Browns talk.
Let's do it.
I want to hear about your journey as a Browns fan, Steve. We like to do this with our guests.
Okay.
So I want to know about if you're from the area, when you first became a football fan, Browns fan, kind of how you got to where you are right now.
Sure. I'm definitely from Cleveland. I was born and grew up in actually the city of Cleveland. My parents still live there. So big sports house. My dad always took us to games, basketball, football, baseball, all of them. Growing up, I'll be turning 40 here in a couple of weeks. So it was probably more towards the late 80s that I remember watching at home. So it was those late 88, 89 years. I was born April in 1980. So remember the later days of the Browns' success with Bernie and Webster Slaughter and Kevin Mack and all those guys. And then kind of grew from there. It was kind of funny because I got really serious into the Browns, and then they were good, and then they went away. And so right when they were good and I was getting serious, I was, 15 when they went away. And so like from 15 to 18 or 15 to 19 or whatever, they disappeared. And so then they came back, obviously, and the rest is history. Stayed with them the whole time. Met Eric, who you know as well, down at a Browns game in 2012, I want to say, 2011, something like that. It was a Thursday night game against Buffalo. I was season ticket holder. I've been season ticket holder for a long time. My brother was, and Eric, my buddy was, who was my friend now, him and his friend were, and we were both individually, without knowing each other, picked to be flag holders for a Thursday night Buffalo game, holding the American flag on the field. And this thing was ginormous. It wasn't the little 20-yard one. This was the entire length and width of the field minus the end zone. So it was 100 yards by 50 yards or whatever it is. And let me tell you, it was interesting and something I would never, ever do in my life again. And I wouldn't recommend it to anyone to ever do it, ever. And
was it a windy night?
No. It's just the process is awful. So there's, this process involved a lot of people because it was such a big flag. It might be a little different when it's something smaller. And of course, it's the NFL. They want to make sure everything goes off without a hitch. So you're talking Thursday night football. It's like 8:00 game. You have to be there at 4:00. They cram all these people into the second visitor's locker room, and you're hot. It's 100 people stuffed into a room. Jimmy Haslam had about 30 leftover hot dogs from Pilot Flying J and a couple of bags of chips and maybe 3 bottles of water for like 150 people, however many it was, 100 people.
Wow.
And you go out and you practice the whole thing, exactly how you're going to walk, exactly how you're going to do it, come back, walk it all the way back, do it again, practice it again, all the way from the back to the front, bring it back. Then you just sit there, you wait, you do it. You go out there. They put us on the visitor side of the field. So we're out there during warm-ups on the Buffalo Bills sideline, like I cared about being on the Buffalo Bills sideline in 2011 or whenever it was. We do the whole ordeal. The whole, 5 minutes that it took to do the actual process was fun. But then you got to remember, you got to put that thing away. You got to walk it back. I didn't get to my seats until like 2 minutes to go before the second quarter started, like 2 minutes left in the first quarter, almost second quarter already, basically. So tread lightly when you get one of those experiences. You may like it, you may not. I don't know. But just been a nut ever since, man. Still season ticket holder to this day, and I don't miss a game.
Wow. So do you remember any of the AFC Championship games?
I do. TV. I was not there, but yeah, on TV.
Okay. Yeah. That's kind of what we think back to when we think of the glory days.
They were unbelievably heartbreaking, as everyone can attest. But yeah, I do remember. I do remember.
Yeah.
It's actually quite sad to say that I'm old enough to remember those, but I do. It's the early years of my Browns days, but I do remember them.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to hear a little bit about your path into radio and how you got to,
how I got there. So
how you got to where you are right now.
Definitely the unconventional way for sure. And I don't know if there's really a conventional way, but I had nothing to do with sports or radio in my adult life for work. I was actually in sales for about 10 years. And for the last 6 or 7 of those years, 6 years, my territory was like basically Erie, PA to Detroit to Columbus, so that triangle. I spent 55,000 miles a year, give or take, just in my work vehicle, not including any kind of personal driving. And so I became just ingrained in sports radio. I mean, who wants to listen to music 12 hours a day, every single day? I mean, it's monotonous, right? So I stumbled on kind of to the earlier days of sports radio in Cleveland. Back then, sports radio really was just starting. 92.3 didn't even exist yet. KNR was still a very small station. There wasn't, I mean, WTM was there, but, they're mostly still just doing the Indians and whatnot. It wasn't too big yet. But I just got hooked, and I'm listening. And before you know it, I mean, I'm listening 8, 9, 10 hours a day. And as the years passed on, I just really was not happy with what I was doing in my professional career. You and I spoke a little bit before the podcast about just doing a lot of this just because it makes us happy. That's what we like to do. And so I decided to go ahead and make a change. And I was like, you know what, if I want to do something, I want to do what I love. I love sports. I got a feel for what this is all about. You listen long enough and you try to do more than just listen, pick up on things as much as you can. I decided to go back to school again to get some certifications so that I could learn a little bit about the back end of the business. And I've been fortunate to be in the business now for about 3 years.
Nice. I mean, that's great to be able to put yourself in a position to make a change like that, to get into something that you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've got a very beautiful and great wife who allowed me to do that and supported me through it. So I definitely can't take the credit on that one. It wouldn't have been something that I could have bit the bullet on if I didn't have her. So
well, that's even better.
Definitely. And if I didn't say that, I might be in the doghouse. So I need to make sure that I add that in there.
She's going to listen, hopefully.
For sure. All
when
right. I flip that out, I'll replay it for her on repeat.
Excellent.
So yeah.
Well, let's move on to this team. So I wanted to get your thoughts on. Let's kind of lump some things together here. How do you expect this team to be built? Was kind of what I wanted to talk about, and as we were putting the outline together, of some things we wanted to kind of go through when we were talking.
Sure.
And how do you expect this team to be built? And then we hear today that Christian Kirksey's released. We know Joe Schobert's not coming back. There's rumors. I don't know if you call it a rumor. I think it's just people probably pure speculation about Trent Williams and would the Browns be interested in a trade versus the tackles that are in the draft now. What would you do, and or what do you expect the Browns to do, with the new regime? Just kind of maybe, from a general standpoint.
Sure.
What do you expect the plan to be?
Well, I think the plan maybe now is even different than what it was maybe when we had just fired Freddie Kitchens and hired Kevin Stefanski, right? Because we knew there were going to be some holes potentially opened up, but at that point in time, all we knew were the guys that were in the doghouse under the Dorsey regime and who was going to be coming up as free agents. So you could kind of glean a little bit into where the holes might be, but I think that's kind of expanded a little bit as we've moved on through this off season. As now we see Christian Kirksey going, now we kind of know for sure that Schobert isn't going to come back. There's a less likelihood probably that Demarius Randall's going to sign here. We don't know. Me personally, I'd like to see him sign here. But yeah. if you don't have Randall, it's looking like now you might also see cuts coming with Vernon potentially, Hubbard potentially, as those are two contracts I could see the Browns wanting to go ahead and get out of, which would save them, I think, around $22 million if they cut the both of them.
Yeah.
So I think it's changed from before to now. I think before, just a couple of months ago, we thought, well, there's not that many holes. Let's fix the offensive line. Let's get a few other pieces to fill in some of those support places. But now it's looking like there's quite a few holes, especially on that defensive side. I mean, for sure you're going to have 3 offensive linemen starters that probably aren't in that starting role right now. Maybe Wyatt Teller comes into the fold from last year. Who knows? But you have 3 offensive linemen. And in this wide zone play action scheme that Stefanski likes to run, tight ends are a big investment. And all you really have right now is Njoku. We did hear Andrew Berry talk at the Combine about Njoku, and it sounds like he's going to be a part of the Browns' future. Mm-hmm. But you and I both know Njoku, okay, when he's on, he can catch some balls. He's not the greatest of blockers. He's very athletic, which will work in this scheme. But you definitely need more than one and more than one reliable one. So you're probably going to need some help there. But on this defensive side of the ball, you're full of holes, and where you don't have holes, you have a lot of inexperience. I mean, you're okay on the defensive line. I mean, depending on what they do with Vernon, if they cut Vernon, you need a complement to Myles Garrett. But you've got returners in Richardson and Ogunjobi, and you've got a little bit of depth, and you got Myles Garrett. But that back seven is really scary, Rod. I mean, you have – if Schobert doesn't sign, which it's looking like he won't, right now you have Sione Takitaki, who barely could get on the field last year. You got Mack, who's promising, but second year. And I think J.T. Hassel. I think that's your linebacking core that you'd be looking at as of right now. And then your back 4, if you lose Demarius Randall, Morgan Burnett's 31, coming off a torn Achilles. Who knows if his football days are even over?
We don't even know if he can play.
I mean, his football days might be over. Who knows? Right. And you've got Greedy Williams just going into a second year. Redwine just going into a second year. You wouldn't have either a strong or free safety because you only really got Redwine to fill one of those others. I mean, Eric Murray, he's coming off that knee injury from last year. You don't really know what's going on with him. And you got Ward on the other side who's had his nicks and bruises. But, okay, if you give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt for experience, you've got Ward, and that's about it in your back 7. That's scary.
I agree.
For
I agree. Yeah,
and then you got a lot of holes.
Yeah, and I'm kind of a little surprised, at linebacker, and it's funny because probably a year ago on this podcast, talking to people, we thought that this season there was a good chance Kirksey was going to get cut because of the cap space and his contract and and his health issues and things like that. So the Kirksey cut in and of itself doesn't surprise me. But we talked last week, or actually 2 weeks ago, on this show about the fact that if Schobert went, we thought that there was a good chance that the Browns would probably really, really try to keep Kirksey around as a veteran presence, and more or less out of need to to have some depth at linebacker. And now you let both of those guys go, and like you said, you like Mack Wilson, but beyond that, you have almost no experience whatsoever. And
you don't. And I don't think it really came down to contract so much with Christian Kirksey. I mean, he was only set to make a little over $7 million next year, which is certainly fine, especially with a guy who, A, is extremely good for your locker room, a guy who is good character, and a guy who's going to give you 100% effort. Look, Christian Kirksey was the absolute consummate pro when it came to the Cleveland Browns organization. I don't take that away from him. Even when he was healthy, was he a great player? No. Was he serviceable? Sure. the biggest problem I think that Barry and Stefanski had to face was he played 9 games in the last 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
2 pretty bad injuries that ended up being season ending. Your best ability is your availability. I mean, you only have so many guys that you can, pull on this roster. And if you already have 2 guys who are just going into year 2 and you need a veteran, you need to be able to know that you have a veteran that's going to be, available. Now, sure, you don't know what's going to happen. Attrition happens in the NFL. He can get hurt week 2. He can get hurt in training camp. But you have to go on the information you have right now. And the information right now didn't look good for Kirksey. I mean, you play 9 games in 2 years and you have a new regime come in. Even though Andrew Barry had Kirksey here the first time he was here, I thought maybe that would have helped him a little bit. But it didn't surprise me when they let him go. If anything, now it makes me question, could they potentially revisit maybe trying to get Schobert here? Because I was going through some of these linebackers outside of the draft as we move into the 2020 season, and there's not a whole lot really out there. I mean, the best free linebacker out there is Corey Littleton, who is also 26 from the Rams. They're also saying he's going to be in the $12 million range, and it drops off pretty big from there. So would you take a guy from your own system who's been here the entire time, who's 26 years old, and get rid of him to essentially just bring in another 26 years old and pay him the same amount of money? I mean, maybe if you thought that the output was a lot better. I mean, it's hard for me to bag on Joe because he's such a good guy for this team. He's intelligent. It's 100% effort. He's on the field every play. He gives it his all. It's hard for me to bag on him. But is he great? Is he that thumping middle linebacker that I would prefer the Browns to have? No. But like you said, in comparison to really what's out there, I mean, what are you going to do?
There's not much. And, most of what's out there is going to cost you more. Some of those guys are –
the same, if any. Sure.
So, some of those guys are edge rushers, more or less. So, they're not going to do what Joe does. And some of those guys just plain aren't as good as Joe. And some of those guys are going to cost a lot more money than Joe. So
yeah, I mean, I think Corey Littleton is probably better than Joe Schobert as a player. But he's the same exact age. He's going to be demanding, from what I read, the same exact money in that ballpark of 11, 12, $13 million. So
I don't see the Browns doing that, right?
Do you keep your own? Do you bring in another new guy? You're learning a new system anyway. But sure. I mean, if you didn't sign any veteran and you just go to the draft again, well, then, like you brought up just a couple of minutes ago, your most experienced linebacker going into an entire NFL season is Mac. That would spell trouble.
It's rough, and I'm wondering again if the Browns are, if they're expecting to play more, 4-2-5 this season on defense. But even if they
played that last year.
Yeah,
they never had 3 linebackers on the field last year. So
doing that, you need some experience out there.
Yeah, you do. Well, and you not only need someone with experience, but you need someone. I mean, that's a difficult position to play. I mean, realistically, the quarterback, the center, and then that middle linebacker who is your quarterback of the defense, who is calling out your plays, getting you in sets, looking for the motions, changing everything based on what kind of audibles are being called. That there's a lot on your shoulders there, and I don't know I think Mac would. That's too much too early for him, and for sure.
I agree. Yeah.
So you need someone who can handle that, who's been in that position before to be able to do it, because I don't think that's something that you just step into. I mean, it's possible. Quarterbacks come in as a rookie and start. It's possible, but I don't know. I'd be hard pressed to think that Mac and Taki would be your main 2 linebackers only going into next year, and that puts you towards the draft and the little bit that's available in free agency. So I think to go back to your bigger overall arching point, how is this thing going to be built? I like what the Browns and Barry and Stefanski have done. It seems like the people that have been brought in are very intelligent, detail-oriented, prepare type people. And so I think the plan is going to be a good one, meaning I'm not afraid of what the potential plan is. Drafting talent, that's a whole different story. But I think the plan is to figure out a balance between all three options, your draft, your trade, your free agency, on how you can put this team in a position for success while not having too much money on the line outside of a 2-year window. I think in trade and free agency, you're going to see a lot of front end loaded type stuff where after 2 years, money's going to be falling off and you're not really going to have to worry as much, because that's when Ward, Myles Garrett after this year, hopefully if Baker works out after this season, next year is his 4th. They could wait it out another year, but then he'd be in his 5th year. So you really got 2 more full NFL seasons where you can take out a whole bunch of money. After the Kirko release today, the Browns were right in the vicinity of $70 million. That'll bump up around $90 million, a little north of $90 million, if they were to cut Vernon and Hubbard. So you got $90 million to play with. There's a lot that they could do, even if they wanted to go after a Trent Williams, or even if they wanted to go after some of these other guys, like a Jack Conklin from the Titans. I think there's ways that they could go about it where they can afford to pay within the next 2 years and still financially set themselves up to pay their own talent as they go forward. Because I think the Browns know that they can't, even though $90 million is going to be a lot of money, or let's just say 70 right now, because those guys haven't been cut yet. You can't be, exorbitant in your spending without thinking about who you have to pay. Because if Myles Garrett is who you think he is, and Baker turns out to be who you think he is, and Denzel Ward is who you think he is, and Chubb wants to, you want to keep Chubb in your system, that's going to eat up a lot of your cap after 2 more seasons.
Yeah.
So I think the plan right now is to figure out, how do I best balance bringing in talent, filling holes, while maybe doing it in a way where I can be essentially financially irresponsible for the first 2 years. Because really money for this year and next year doesn't matter. It's just making sure that after the second year, you're okay.
Yeah. So if it's you, if you're the GM, where are you going to spend that money? I mean, to me, I think we feel like the offensive line is where we really need the pieces to get this offense clicking. But now it appears that there are going to be so many holes on defense. And we don't want to take such a huge step backward on defense when things were. Yeah, people will argue and say, some people will think that the defense has not been that good. I think the defense has really shown some positive steps the past couple seasons, with some of the guys around. So I hate to see it take a big step backward this year because of talent. So, would you go after a guy like Trent Williams so that you can draft a little bit differently, or would you try to patch your defense up?
Sure.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's very tough. And just like any regime, you're not going to be able to do everything in one season. It's just impossible unless you are right there in those top contending teams where the holes are so very few. You can't do it all in one season. Dorsey did make some dents in some areas, and that's good. But you're talking about a Browns team and a Browns organization that was so deficient of talent for so long and essentially stripped it to the studs just in 2016 and 17 when Andrew Berry was here the first time. It's going to take some time. So I think it's going to come down. I think this free agency is going to tell us a lot. And I think the bidding wars might force them to decide what direction they want to go into. Offensive line help is important for everyone. And there are going to be other suitors for Trent Williams. There are going to be other suitors for Jack Conklin. There are going to be other suitors, even for Jason Peters in a one-year stopgap. You have a team that might need some help. They're right there contending. Sure, I'll bring in an 11-time Pro Bowler or whatever for 1 year because it doesn't matter to me. My goal right now is to win a Super Bowl. So there's going to be talent. Bidding wars out there for some of these guys. So if you can get a guy like maybe Jack Conklin in for cheaper than what it would cost you for Trent Williams, then maybe I bring in Jack Conklin, fill him on my right tackle side. I'm solid there. And then I can concentrate that 10th pick on a left tackle of the future and maybe even go out there and get a Jason Peters or an Andrew Whitworth, these 38-year-olds who maybe only have 1 year left, maybe two, and let them be that veteran presence to give you 1 year while whoever it is, Wills or Wirth or Thomas or Becton or any of these guys that you end up going with at 10, learn and figure it out. So they're going to have to fill 3 holes on the line. Maybe one of them comes in trade, maybe one of them or 2 of them come in free agency, and then I definitely think another one will come through the draft. Brandon Scherf's a right guard out there who I think is going to command quite a bit on the market, but you're going to be in play with enough money to get into that bidding as well. So I think the Browns are going to have to be reactionary into seeing what other teams are willing to put out there as far as numbers go to really decide. I think they probably have, a half a dozen different paths of how they can get there. And it's a matter of, right?
I agree with you.
It's like playing a big board game of Risk or something when you got, 200 other countries out there. What other people do are going to kind of control some of your plans. So I think they have probably half a dozen plans out there of how they're going to get to their end game. And you're going to have to see once March 16th pops open and the legal tampering period begins. Such a dumb word, by the way. Legal tampering. Oxymoron at its best, right? But
definitely,
I think you're going to see, quote unquote deals in place pretty quickly come the 16th, 17th, 18th when free agency opens up. And then we'll start to get an idea of where they go. I think whatever big talent they can get at the right price in free agency or trade, they go with, and then whichever one they don't, they draft. And in that case, it might just both be tackles anyway. And then it's really a moot point because some of the tackles that are in this draft class can play right and left regardless. So I think it just kind of depends. If the Browns want Trent Williams, they're in a perfect place to get him, I think. Bill Callahan just coached Trent Williams for 5 years in Washington. So he's got the inside scoop on Trent Williams, who he is as a person, who he is as a player. Would he want to come here? I'm sure. The respect that I've been reading about Bill Callahan is great. So I would imagine that Trent Williams would like Bill Callahan, but I don't know that to be fact.
Right.
So I think they have an inside scoop, but there's a guy, 31 years old. It's going to cost you $15-16 million a year. Fine. If you're an elite left tackle, which from all the X's and O's experts out there, they say when Trent Williams is healthy and engaged, he's elite, above good, like elite, all pro elite. And he's still got maybe 4 or 5 years left in him at that. So that's good. The problem is he hasn't played more than 13 games since 2015 either. So if you're talking about, hey, I need to sink a bunch of money into someone, do I want to sink 15, 16, 17 million dollars into somebody that history tells me I'm probably going to have to play without him for 3 to 4 games every year? Because why should I believe all of a sudden he's going to start playing 16 games again? I don't know. That's why they've got guys who get paid a lot more than me to do this. So I think there's a lot to be figured out. Cost, injury history, where we can get them, and kind of go from there. I think that I'm hoping that Andrew Berry stays true to his words when he said that he wants to be known for being aggressive. Because I think that if the Browns are aggressive with those first 2 picks, they have the 10th pick in round 1 and the 41st in round 2, which by aggressive, I mean it may take you another pick and maybe even a player. I'm just throwing this out there. Who knows? But you take, 41, another pick, and whoever, just name another player, whatever. Sione Takitaki, and I trade up from 41 to 32, and I draft the second best second best linebacker in the draft behind Isaiah Simmons. That's what something like that. If I hope that they're aggressive enough in those first 2 picks to knock off 2 spots that they really need. That whole adage between draft for need and draft for best player available, I think in this case, the Browns have so many holes, especially on defense, that the need and the best available hopefully lines up anyway.
It should. You would think
I think that's kind of how they're going to go about it. But like I said before, I think they probably have 6 different ways to go about it. And it's going to get dictated by what other teams do. Because we have no idea what other teams are going to offer some of these other players or try to do to get them.
Yeah, you're right.
I love it when I hear, see Browns fans on Twitter or something like absolutely. It's like the Browns just have, free agency opens up on the 18th or the 16th for tampering, and the Browns just get automatic pick of whoever they want. You know what I mean? Sure, yeah, we'll just take Jack Conklin, we'll take Trent Williams, and we're definitely gonna. Isaiah Simmons will definitely drop to 10 because then we don't need a tackle. So for sure, we'll get the best linebacker in the draft. He'll just be there at 10, and then the Browns are going to be all right.
It's all worked out.
Like there's 31 other NFL teams that are going to dictate, some of what you do, and that's the unfortunate part about the business.
Yeah, until somebody offers a first rounder and a huge contract for Trent Williams, and then he's not available. So
sure,
and that totally takes it out of the Browns' hands. So
yeah, absolutely. And I don't think the Browns are in a position to get stupid about any of their moves either. You're not going to offer a first round pick or a Denzel Ward for Trent Williams. It's just not going to happen. He's elite when he's healthy and he's engaged, but that's just not a smart move, even though you have a need at left tackle. I think the Browns need to do their due diligence and figure out there's a decent enough crop out there between tackles out there. You got Jack Conklin, you got Joe Thuney, you got Trent Williams, Jason Peters, and Andrew Whitworth are stopgaps, but there's options out there. Not a whole lot at linebacker like we talked about. Corey Littleton's out there. There's a few other linebackers out there. Do I think their play is worth – I don't know. That's up to the scouts to decide. Right. Safety could be another place that you see some free agent action out there. Anthony Harris, to me, would be a move I would go after from the Vikings.
That one seems to make sense, yeah.
A long time. It makes sense. Jimmy Ward's out there, but I don't see the Browns. I don't know why the 49ers would get rid of him, but who knows? I mean, he can go anywhere he wants. But there are some safeties out there to help you in the free agent market. So I think you're going to look draft where there isn't, right? Help at free agency. Yeah. And then you're going to look free agency where there is the help on something that makes sense for the team. And like I said, I think their biggest overall theme is going to be focused on money being clear in whatever that means for them 3 years and on. I think the first 2 years they can do whatever they want. And you're seeing that a lot in the NFL now anyways. Everything's front loaded. Someone gets a 5-year, $150 million contract, but, $100 million of it's paid in the first 2 years. And you're seeing that a lot in the NFL. And that's a way for teams to, with cap space, to just go ahead and take care of it now, but still set you up for success down the road. So I think that's what you're going to see.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear about the Top Dog Tailgate event that's coming up on April the 4th. That that you're affiliated with Top Dog. You and Eric, and I've been up there a couple times. It's a lot of fun before the games. This one's not before a game, but it's going to be a great gathering. So I just kind of wanted to put it out there and kind of let you say a couple things about that.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate it. At West 3rd and Summit, at W number 3 3rd and Summit. Just type that in, or type in Top Dog Tailgate on Twitter, and you can get all the information that you need. It is not for profit. Top Dog Tailgate makes zero money on anything that we do. We just cover costs. That's not what we're about. We do a off-season, sometimes 2 off-season tailgates every year. Lately, we've been doing them in the Metro Parks in Berea. This one is at the WJ Green Lodge in Berea. So they have fire pits and a fireplace in the pavilion if it's cold. It's just a place to kind of get together with all your Browns friends and family that you see every week during the year, that maybe just because of family obligations or distance between you logistically, that you just don't see a lot outside of the Browns season. And we get together, and it's essentially a big tailgate. I mean, there'll be music. It's a crock pot event where you can bring your own crock pot of food. There's a charity going on for City Dogs Cleveland. We've been working with them for a few years now. Every year during the season, we actually do a tailgate during the season that they come down to, and they bring some dogs that need adopted and just pamphlets and information. It's really just for them, for us to help them get the word out, for animal lovers out there who are maybe looking for a new animal to add to their family. It's Saturday, April 4th from 1 to 7. It's really just come and have a good time. If you can't bring food or beer, don't worry about it. Just come and have a good time anyway. There's always a surplus of soda and water and beer and food and whatever, that don't feel ashamed or shy. If you can't bring anything, don't. Just come and support a good cause, and just hang out with your Browns family and have fun. And really, it's just about bringing people together that don't get a chance just because our lives are busy outside of the 8 times a year that we're down at the stadium tailgate. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's always a great group of people, and you guys do an excellent job. You just do. So
appreciate it.
Yeah, Steve, I wanted to close just with kind of getting your thoughts on just a few guys, and I kind of wanted to start just with your thoughts on Stefanski and Barry, just kind of briefly, how comfortable you are with these guys going into the season, what you expect out of their leadership, in their first season in their roles with the Browns.
Sure. Well, I think unlike the stories that we've heard about last year, the chaos and instability and dysfunction within the building in Berea, I think that should hopefully be fixed. I do believe that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are not going to have a ship run that way. They're very, from everything I hear, they're very detailed, very organized, very prepared, very responsible, business-like type people. And so I think just from a functional standpoint, I think that's going to go a very long way for this team that has a lot of personalities, that thought they were better than what they were, or maybe they're as good as what they thought they were, but just didn't put in the work because it was chaos. I think the structure is going to be there. So as far as that is concerned, I have no worries. As far as will they bring the right players in? Will they draft the right players? Are they experienced enough? I don't know. I mean, every head coach who does it for the first time is a first-time head coach, and you just don't know these things. I mean, you can't help but feel a little bit calmed by the different players that have put out messages saying how much they respected Kevin Stefanski as a person and as a coach, from even players that he didn't coach on a daily basis because he was just on the offensive side of the ball there in Minnesota. It says a lot about the character of that man to come in. So I'm gonna until they prove otherwise, I'm gonna be optimistic that Kevin is going to get the respect that he needs to have a chance to be a good coach. And then the X's and O's is going to be up to him and the players. On Barry's side of things, I just don't know. I think he learned a lot from the situation he was in when he was here under Sashi Brown prior. I think that situation and the situation the Browns are currently in are two completely different type of situations and different goals at that time in the organization. So I'm not going to hold that against him. I will give credit to the fact that I believe Howie Roseman is a good GM, and Andrew has been learning under Howie Roseman there in Philadelphia for the last couple of years. So I have optimism that he learned more than he knew prior to than he knew when he was here prior. The proof's going to be in the pudding. Can he pick players? I think a lot of things are going to change too. I think exactly what we see here in year one isn't necessarily going to be exactly what we see in year two because of the timing of everything. They weren't going to come in and just uproot all the scouts that put in all the work in the offseason and just start over. All those other scouts had current jobs and other things of that nature too. So I think you saw a lot of movement in the upper echelon, the directors of scouting and those upper level people. You saw them moved out already, but I think after the draft, you're going to see a lot of other scouts, turned over and other ones brought in. That's just natural for every new regime. So I think what you're going to get for this draft it might look different than what you're going to get the following season because these aren't Andrew's people. He inherited all of these people. So I think it's just something that we're just going to have to wait and see. I think conscious, intelligent, respected, well-minded individuals will have a chance. I think the building was just in such chaos that nobody had a chance to get that thing on the right path. So the hope is there's some order and structure put in place and that Jimmy Haslam can do what he's never done before and actually stick with it for a little while and see what these guys can do. But there's a difference between being intelligent and, being able to pick players. And we'll see what happens here as we go forward. But I don't think I'm going to put as much weight on this first situation of acquisitions and drafts as I will moving forward because of the timing. I just don't know. I mean, you're getting information from people that you don't know. So it's going to be interesting for sure. and I'm excited for March 16th to finally get here.
Yeah, same. I think people in Cleveland probably hate the word patience, but I think they need to exercise it this season. People really need to remember and learn the fact that there's not only a learning curve for players, there's a learning curve for head coaches and GMs and pretty much everybody in any position. So don't expect perfection out of these guys in this first season. And the reasons you said, also play into that. Makes their job even harder, especially Andrew Berry makes his job even harder this first season. So
sure.
Hopefully they all get to the second and third seasons.
Right. Sure. I agree. And I mean, it takes time for any organization, any team in any level of pro sport. Well, not any level because baseball is different, but to learn a system in football in all three phases of the game, it doesn't just happen in one OTAs and one training camp. It doesn't. It's going to take time. Brady didn't get to 6 championships by skipping all the steps in between. It was a methodical process, and they got better as they went on. And you're going to have to see that with the Browns. And the one thing I actually can say positively for Browns fans, at least what I'm seeing out there in Twitter reactions and whatnot, is I think last year was a taste of our own medicine as fans. Mm-hmm. I think even fans this year have brought down their expectations a bit, and they said, you know what? Let's bring it down a notch, and let's just take our time, and let's let this thing play out. I don't think you're going to hear a lot of, oh, we're going 12-4, and we're going, we're definitely going to the playoffs and all this, that, and the other that you heard last year. I think everyone kind of got a taste of their own medicine, that talent doesn't just mean success. And I think that's a good thing for the fans, because if they can, if everyone can just kind of put themselves in a more realistic mindset, then maybe you won't be as disappointed on Sundays. Although we'll be disappointed anyway. That's just who we are. But
Browns fans. Yeah.
But it'll help. So.
All right. Well, Steve, it's been great talking to you.
I really appreciate it, Rod.
Yeah, let's give out your Twitter handle one more time. It's at Steve Bailey. That's Bailey is Bailey at Steve Bailey 80. So give Steve a follow on Twitter. Let's see. Other than that, I think we've pretty well covered everything, Steve. So it's been great talking to you, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Rod.
We're going to welcome my brother Jeff into the show. Jeff, how are things going for you tonight?
Going good, Rod. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. I have to say I'm a little bit apprehensive after we discussed, the topic for our discussion tonight. I'm kind of used to asking the questions. So,
I thought this would be fun to kind of turn the tables on you a little bit. A few weeks ago, we did a show where you and I kind of took a trip down memory lane, and, you taxed my memory and proved my memory wasn't really that good.
Now you're going to do the same to me, probably. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I thought I'd embarrass you a little bit and, see how, how much you remember about guys who have been on the team over the last many, many years. I'm going to make this as fair as possible, okay? First of all, this isn't going to be anybody who had a cup of coffee with the team, okay? These are guys who had, at least average or better NFL careers, okay? I think the average NFL career is still like 5 years. All these guys played at least 5 years.
In the NFL, but not necessarily with the Browns.
In the NFL, not necessarily with the Browns, right? So the game here is I give you the name, and you tell me whether this person was actually a Browns player.
At any point in time, yeah.
At any point in their career, were they actually a Browns player? Okay. And then once you give me your answer, I'll kind of give a little bit of background on these guys. And I'm going to help you a little bit more by doing it in more or less chronological order. Okay. So I'm going to give you the oldest guy first and then move toward more current. And I think for some of your younger fans, I mean, hopefully it'll be kind of interesting and maybe a little educational, going back and talking about some guys that are, old time players and, maybe names they might recognize, but didn't necessarily associate with the Browns.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
Ready when you are.
All right.
As ready as I'm going to be.
And let's just put this out there that you're not looking at a Browns roster or anything like that. You're doing this off the top of your head.
That's
so
right.
No one's gonna give you a hard time if you're not nailing all of these. Okay.
I just hope I get enough right to not embarrass myself too bad.
Right. Well, there's 10, so there's a 100% scale going here, so we're going to see where you fall on that, and I'll even give you an extra credit at the end.
Okay.
All right. So first guy, and this is a simple one, really. But I'm going to give you this name, and you tell me whether or not you think he ever played for the Browns. Don Shula.
Don Shula. Jeez, you're going way back. Oh. How long do I have on these?
This is an hour show, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't honestly know about his pro career. I know he has ties. I swear he has ties to the Browns. I'm going to say that he did play for the Browns.
And you would be right. He was actually a draft choice of the Browns back in 1951. He was taken in the 9th round, which is interesting because he was the 110th overall pick, which in today's game would be an early 4th rounder. Defensive back out of John Carroll University. Paul Brown selected him basically because the coach at John Carroll was running a very similar type of a system to what Paul Brown ran with the Browns at that point in time. Shula and another John Carroll player were picked in that draft. Shula played pretty extensively his rookie year. And then his second year, actually because of the Korean War, he got called into the Ohio Guard. So he only played like 4 games, I think, 5 games in 1952. And then in 53, he was traded along with that other player from Paul Brown, whose name escapes me at the moment, from John Carroll, whose name escapes me at the moment. But in a 7-player trade that brought back Mike McCormick, who was Hall of Fame tackle, I think, for the Browns. Yeah. So Don Shula went on to play 4 years with the Colts and finished up in 57 with the Redskins. So he had a 7-year career, 21 career interceptions.
Not bad.
Not bad.
No.
But he's obviously much better known as, for his 33-year Hall of Fame career as a head coach and taking the 1972 Dolphins to what's known as the perfect season. Yeah. So anyway, probably the second most famous Brown as a player in terms of accomplishments from a team and league standpoint to Jim Brown. Mm-hmm. All right, ready for number 2?
Yeah.
Jim Schaffner.
Jim Schaffner. I'm going to say yes. He was a Brown.
Yeah, in fact, he was a first-round pick by the Browns in 1958 out of Texas Christian University. and he played for the Browns for 6 seasons. But again, just much like Shula, much better known for his coaching career. He was an assistant for many, many years on the offensive side. He did have 20 career interceptions as a Brown in 6 seasons, which, again, not bad. But he's probably best remembered for finishing out the 1990 season after Bud Carson was fired and going 1-6.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Right. Okay, moving right along. The third guy. This one might check your memory a little bit. Fair Hooker.
Oh, he was Brown, definitely.
For sure. He was drafted by the Browns in 1969 out of Arizona State. He played for 6 years with the Browns from 69 to 74. He had in 57. He had 57 starts in 74 career games. He had 129 catches and 8 touchdowns. And in 1971, he had his best season with 649 receiving yards. So I thought that name might throw you a little bit, but good job.
Well, I'm a card collector, Jeff, and Fair Hooker's cards are pretty famous because people love the name. People post pictures of his cards a lot, so yeah.
All right, next one, Don Strock. Sticking with the Dolphin theme.
Oh, he played for the Browns. They pulled him out of retirement, I believe, in 1986, if I'm not mistaken.
It was 88.
88. Okay.
Yeah, it was the year that Gary Danielson got hurt. I think in the first or second game, Bernie Kosar came in and also got hurt. I think we might have used 4 quarterbacks that year.
Yeah. Incredible.
But yeah. So yeah, Don Strock is really best remembered as Bob Greasy's backup with the Dolphins, but enjoyed a pretty successful career after Greasy retired. But you're right, he played. He played in 4 games and he had 2 starts with the 1988 Browns out of a lengthy career.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You were actually you worked your way up to 5th on the depth chart that year at quarterback, didn't you?
It's very possible.
Along with a lot of the rest of us.
Was eligible to play quarterback that year.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. Number 5, Mark Bavaro.
Oh, he was a Brown. Definitely.
He actually did play for the Browns under Belichick in 1992.
I was a big fan of him, and I remember had discussions about him not long ago as to where he placed, as a Brown, and I remembered him putting up bigger numbers and playing with the Browns longer than he actually did. So I know, yeah. I mean, just because the guy was so incredible, he'd catch the ball and drag 5-6 guys down the field. So you thought he was quite accomplished within his 6 years with the Giants. I
think when he came to the Browns, he'd probably suffered some injuries and had lost a little bit, but he played 16 games in 92. He had 25 catches for 315 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not quite the Hall of Fame career that we remember, but he finished out his career with the Eagles.
Fun to watch, though, I guarantee you.
Oh yeah, yes sir. All right, moving along. Okay, number 6, Andre Tippett.
He never played for the Browns.
No, you're correct. He played his entire career with the Patriots, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. What's interesting about Andre Tippett, and what I thought might have thrown you, was the year after he retired, the Patriots' number 1 pick was also a left outside linebacker named Willie McGinnis. Tippett was a number was a second round pick in '82. McGinnis was a first round pick in '94, and McGinnis really had a hard time filling Tippett's shoes. But Willie McGinnis actually did finish his career with the Browns. Let's see, 06 to 08. The other Andre I thought you might have thought about was Andre Rison. When I said Andre Tippett.
Yeah.
Right. Andre Rison was probably the single reason why the original Cleveland Browns are now in Baltimore. As you recall, Art Modell signed him to a multi-million, well, I think it was a little over $1 million contract, and he had to borrow money to be able to pay Andre Rison, which was why he took the financial package to move the team to Baltimore. So, little known fact.
Yeah, we're here to educate. Yes.
Right. Okay. Moving right along. Sam Malone.
Sam Malone. You might have me on this one. I'm going to say, I'm honestly not sure. I'm going to guess no on this one.
No, you're right. He never played for the Browns. He was actually the bartender on Cheers.
Oh, that's Sam Malone. Okay. I'm thinking of, I'm thinking. That's Sam Malone. Yeah, you are correct. I'm thinking, thinking of Mark Malone, maybe.
You might have heard me talk about Ralph Malone. Ralph Malone was a free agent defensive edge back in '86, and he was actually a customer of mine after his playing days. So he and I interacted a little bit on a professional level and played golf together once. But he only played for 1 year. So I thought Sam Malone would probably trip you up, but it didn't.
It kind of did. So, I just guessed right.
You're scoring 100 so far. All right, number 8, Tom Tupa.
Tom Tupa. I think he had a cup of coffee with. Trying to think. Second here. I think he was with. Yeah, he was with the Browns briefly for a couple seasons.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. He was actually cut by the Browns in '93, and then he was brought back in '94 and '95 to punt. The interesting thing is prior to that, and everybody knows Tom Tupa was out of Ohio State, a two-way. He was a quarterback punter, and he really tried to establish himself as a quarterback early in his career. So Phoenix drafted him in the 3rd round in '88, and he was really a developmental quarterback until '93 when the Browns cut him. They brought him back as a punter in '94. He punted the rest of his career. Actually, '96 through '04, the Patriots, the Jets, the Bucks, and the Skins. And as a result, he ended up 38th on the all-time punting yardage list. So what I thought was interesting about that is if he had just come out of college as a punter and punted his entire career, I think you could reasonably make the case that his just under 38,000 yards would have probably been closer to 50 or more, which would have put him top 10 all time. So, yeah, I mean, and he's also known for scoring the first ever 2-point conversion in 1994. He actually had 3 of them that year. So they called him 2-Point Tupa.
Nice.
But interestingly, also, do you know of the top 10 punters all times in terms of yardage, how many of them do you think are former Browns or one-time Browns? No points for this, by the way.
He's probably the only one.
Actually, there's of the top 10 punters by yardage in NFL history, 4 of them are ex-Browns.
Really?
Andy Lee, Brad Maynard, Lee Johnson, and Chris Gardocki are all top 10 career-wise on the punting list. And so Tom Tupa was 38th on that list, but he could have easily been number 5 of the top 10 for ex-Browns punters, which is incredible.
Yeah, it makes sense when you say the names. I was trying to think of guys who had been with the Browns a while, but it's guys who actually punted for a long time and kind of, moved around. So yeah.
Right. Yep. Okay. 2 more left. Okay. Clint Boyer.
Clint Boyer. I'm gonna say no. Isn't he a race car driver?
You're correct. Clint Boyer is actually, he's actually a NASCAR driver for Stewart Haas Racing. But you may have been thinking of Brant Boyer, no relation, who actually played for the Browns from 01 to 03 as a linebacker. He played for 6 years with Jacksonville. He was originally drafted by the Dolphins, but he was a backup linebacker for a number of years with the Browns, for 3 years with the Browns. So I thought I might catch you on that one, but knowing that you're a NASCAR fan,
I'm really not. I haven't watched NASCAR in 10 years, but yeah, I hear a little bit about it, just enough.
Right. All right, and the last one, Kim Herring.
Kim Herring?
Yeah.
So this is the most recent one. So this is the one I should know, right?
You should know this one.
Kim Herring. Everybody out there's yelling at me. I can hear them right now. I mean, I'm gonna say yes. Kim Herring. Familiar.
Kim Herring was drafted by the Ravens in the second round in '97. He played for them through 2000. He played for the Rams in 01 and 02, and he finished up with the Bengals in 04. He never played for the Browns, but he did graduate from Solon High School.
Okay.
Which is where both of us graduated from. So okay. I figured you'd recognize that name.
It sounded familiar. That's why. Yeah.
Yep. So not bad. 90%. I've got a bonus question for you, so you can recoup your 10%.
All right.
It's still an A, but you could go to A+.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. On the Browns all-time roster, there are a number of players named Jackson, Johnson, Jones, Smith, and Brown. Which name has the most all-time players?
Oh my gosh. So my choices are, again,
Jackson, Johnson, Jones, Smith, and Brown.
Well, I'm going to go against my better judgment here and go with what I think are the odds and say Smith. Because my first guess would honestly be Johnson, because I know there have been a ton of Johnsons on the Browns, but I think it would be Smith.
There have been a ton of all of these guys.
Yeah.
And honestly, and they are common names, okay? And so based on the fact that you selected the most common name in the U.S., that was a very good guess, and it also happens to be right. There are 22 Smiths on the all-time Browns roster. There are 20 Browns, 19 Joneses, 18 Johnsons, and 15 Jacksons. Amazing.
That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, I knew Smith was the most common name, so I figured I had a good shot
Right.
there. But I knew there have been so many of these other names on the Browns. Yeah, yeah. That was a great question.
I have to say, I'm a little disappointed that I didn't stump you more times, but
Well,
it just goes to show why you are the man.
right. I guess I'm just having a good day because I'll say I guessed on 2 or 3 of those, and it's better to be lucky than good sometimes too.
There you go.
So, yeah, that was fun. You have anything else with you? Anything else you would like to talk about tonight, Jeff?
The little bit of things that are going on in the news, sports-wise, are all kind of being overshadowed by what's going on with coronavirus and so forth. And I just hope that the next time we speak, that we've turned the corner and we're back to just having fun with football and not so panicked over a health crisis that's just taken over the entire world right now.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, people are, I don't know how it is, up by your house, but people are buying up toilet paper and water down here. It's like, it's like the end of the world. It's just kind of nuts. So
right.
People need to just kind of take a step back and kind of hopefully let this thing pass and let the experts do what they do and figure this thing out. And hopefully there'll be some resolution for it soon, like you said.
Right.
So, all right. Well, aside from that, we'll try to end on a positive note here, Jeff. It's always good talking to you, and we appreciate everyone listening. This has been the Browns Blitz, and we will catch you all next time.